Feel good Friday underway. Good afternoon. Let's go. Daily Ticket with you here. As I said, a little casual, relaxed Friday for the week for me. But back in action next week, starting on Monday, live from the studio all throughout the course of the weekend. And Friday, we'll be at the Philly Show. Once again, phillyshow.com. Get your tickets. I'm getting DMs. We got giveaways on our socials at Fox PHL Gambler happening right now. All you got to do is follow, tag 3 friends, and you could be winning a Jake Elliott jersey, courtesy of the Philly Show right now. And then we also have some other giveaways, and I'll just let you know for our listening audience: Nicole Dean autographed helmet, LaShawn McCoy autographed helmet, and a Cam Jurgens autographed jersey. So we'll have all of that leading up to the show next week. Once again, live Friday from the Philly Show. Joining me here on today's edition of the Daily Ticket, you know him, you love him, host of the Tough Cover Radio Show, heard every Saturday except for tomorrow because we got Villanova and Butler. It's Mark Henry Jr. Hello, Mark.
How we doing? You got the Mickey Mouse on the shirt, freshly from Orlando. How we doing?
Dude, Orlando's where magic happens, Mark Henry Jr.
I love it.
Steph Curry drops 56 last night in Orlando. There's, come on, man. This is what we do. It's funny because I saved a lot of the tidbits that I drew up in my mind and from my Disney trip specifically for you. So I was looking forward to us recording today. And you know what? We're not going to bury the lead. We're going to open up with some of the thoughts that happened for me out there in Disney. And the reason why, for the people that are just tuning in, maybe don't know about your background, you are a Disney aficionado to the point that you celebrated your honeymoon there with your beautiful wife. You guys went to what, Universal and Magic Kingdom?
We did Universal and all the parks but Animal Kingdom. Magic Kingdom, MGM, or Hollywood Studios now, and Epcot.
How many do you have a Fitbit? Do you have an Apple Watch? Does she?
No, but we were around 20 to 25,000 steps a day when we were there. The one day I think we did Hollywood Studios where we rope dropped for I realized that term's not a normal term. For anyone out there who doesn't know, rope drop, we got there before they opened, so we're waiting as they open the ropes after they let everybody in so you can run to the first ride and do whatever you want to do. So we got there, 8 a.m.
So you and your lady are sprinting to the ride.
Yes. Yeah. We were there at 8 a.m. We stayed there till 1 or 2 o'clock. And then we Ubered back to Universal, then went right at it at Universal for the next 6 hours after that. So I think that day we hit 30K steps. So
wow. Yeah. So my wife and I, we did 15 miles in 2 days, and we didn't do we were there early, but we didn't stay late. The one park we left at 5, and then the other one we got there at 1, which was Animal Kingdom. We got there at 1. We ended up leaving at 7, whatever it was. So it wasn't all that long, but we still did some serious damage. And my first thing that I would say is I feel bad. Child services should be called on me because I pushed my daughter around in that plastic cart low to the could not have been comfortable when everybody had these nice fancy strollers that they rented from other places other than Disney.
Yeah.
The ones you could rent from Disney are completely plastic. And I felt bad, but she didn't care. She had a blast, but that was funny as hell. All right. First and foremost, where do we start from Disney? I said this to my wife. It's the ultimate place. It's really only place left that I think you can let your guard down. It's the only place that I felt in the last 5 years that my head wasn't on. Now this could go against me and who knows, but I think it would take a serious type of animal to do any harm to anybody that's at Disney. Right. I'm you're just there and people were friendly. People were nice. I know that there could be some people that are a little crazy dealing with the lines, and there were definitely people that were dealing with anxiety, all that. But man, from my experience, that was a really, really, really cool experience just to be able to say, you know what, man, it feels like we don't have much to worry about here. It feels like everybody's got smiles on their face. They're here with their families, having a good time. And I can't tell you how many times I've felt that way in the last 10 years, Mark, where I've gone to a mall, gone to a sporting event, gone to, just a concert, right? You think Oh yeah, I got nothing to worry about. It's an average day here at the Man. Bull BS, man. You never know. But at Disney, I felt like that was a true place you could let your guard down.
Yeah, it's definitely it's the happiest place on earth. And I'm a Universal guy. Like Universal's my top thing, but Universal's more the adult oriented stuff. And I appreciate for the kids in my family that all of my nieces and nephews have been to Disney now. Like I know two of them are going back in a couple weeks. Like I appreciate that Disney is for them. And there's stuff for the adults. Obviously, you saw Jalen Hurts on the Tron coaster. You saw, there's a Tower of Terror. There's a good amount of legit rides at Disney, but it's all about the atmosphere and it's all about the kids at Disney for sure. It's like, I still think about back to when I was a kid. And these things, when I'm walking around Disney now, I'm like, oh, I remember that walking around when you were a kid. And pretty cool stuff like that. That's why I was telling you about that video thing on YouTube, the one video series.
Oh yeah,
always love like diving into those YouTube wormholes.
So I did make an inappropriate joke, and it wasn't my intention. We had time to kill, and I'm gathered by a couple people, my wife, and she says we're going to go down to see Ariel at the grotto, and all I said was, oh, it's about time they started doing something for the adults around here. And then my wife goes, yeah, she's 16 in the movie. I was like, oh, felt like kind of miniature on that one. It was not my intention by no means about that one. Look, man, it was awesome. It sucked me in to the point where it's like, I had you feeling like a kid, but even more so because I didn't care about Disney or anything like that. Like I don't know Cinderella's sisters or cousins, but like all of a sudden you're walking through and there's a big crowd of people and we're like, oh, who's that? Oh, it's Cinderella's niece. Like, I don't know, man, but that's the type of feeling that you get inside the place. So that was pretty cool, man. And then, just bottom line is like, it's so funny because I haven't done like amusement parks in a long time. I have not did like Great Adventure or Dorney Park, and rest in peace, your Kingda Kai. What is it again?
Kingda Ka. It's a sad. It's and I didn't get what Luke was saying this morning in our group chat. Luke sent in the Kingda Ka down thing. I'm like, I heard about this months ago. I don't need to be reminded of my trauma that they're taking Kingda Ka away from me. But then I saw they did the demolition, so that was why it was back in the news today.
How many times have you rode that ride?
Oh wow. I'd say 200 plus.
Get out of here. How many times have you been to Great Adventure?
Well, I used to have a season pass. So I would say the summers that of middle school, high school, it's also 25 minutes for me. The summers, middle school, high school, I went there 15 times a summer. Like it was like, oh, we have nothing to do this Tuesday. Let's head to Great Adventure. Like that was our big thing. And my family also, my dad, my little brother were also big on it. So I've probably been to Great Adventure 200 times in the last 15, 20 years. Yeah.
Yeah. My wife grew up in Allentown. So that's what Dorney Park, boom. They had passes, all that. But yeah, that's crazy, man. Cause that's a scary ride. That ride goes way up there. Gone. Yeah.
And it's one that if you're at the end of the night, you could do it like 3-4 times when it was, when the place was closing down on like a slow Tuesday. That was probably when I logged those 200.
That's great, man. A lot of fun. So like I said, first time in a long time that I was at an amusement park, and everything. The only negative part I would say is like you can't do anything spontaneous. Like you do not leave anything up for chance. It's so much easier and better, and it just makes sense in the long run for you to have everything to a point as much as on your control on your phone. But the issue I had was I'm old school, man. I need a map. I need that map in my hand. I gotta be able to point. All right, we're this way, because the app is like you gotta go out with it, zoom in, and it's not exactly the easiest process.
I agree,
but your phone is in your hand constantly, so I didn't really dig that. But again, it wasn't for me. It was for my daughter, and she had such a good time meeting everybody. We ate crazy amounts of food. A little pricey, but you know what you're getting into there. Yeah, you know what you're getting into with that one.
I should have thrown this at you before you went. I didn't think about it until after. my like favorite amusement park restaurant or dining thing in the world is at Hollywood Studios. I think it's called the Sci-Fi Drive-In Theater. And it's this little like indoor thing, but it's like a fake drive-in movie theater where they're playing like these old like monster movies on the screen, and the burgers in there are unbelievable. But it's a cool environment. It's like a cool a midday little AC to get out of the sun. That's top notch for anyone going to Disney. There you go.
Yeah, that's the thing. Well, is that we stayed at Magic Kingdom and we did Animal Kingdom, but that was about it. But the food was great, man. Food was awesome. Like I said, a little pricey. We had 2 dinners booked, which were really nice spots. One was like a castle, Beauty and the Beast. And that's, you're paying for that. I understand, but it's a tough pill to swallow when your daughter is charged $42 and she had like a handful of French fries and like a drink. Like, damn, dude, really? But it was good, man. Like, I got sucked up into it a little bit more than my wife. My wife is obviously also 6.5 months pregnant, so it was a little bit more of a fun time for me. Not to say she had a bad time, but I would tell you that I got sucked into it. I enjoyed it, and we definitely go back. As she gets older. Kendall does not a ride. She doesn't like rides, but she got on 2 rides. So that was cool. And I did the Avatar by myself. I was very fortunate. 20-minute wait.
Not
so
bad.
Not bad. That was cool. That was really cool. I wasn't able to do Tron, and that was, but that was like a 60-minute wait. And there was another one I wasn't able to do. The Jungle Cruise, I think I wanted to do. I was like a wait. Yeah, it is what it is. But hey, man, look, Disney was fun. We are back. Like I said, it's been a little bit of a wild weekend or a wild week here for the Gambler, but we'll be ready to rock on Monday in studio. And as I said, the Philly show going down on Friday. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into some of the things in the sports world. Mark Henry Jr. Now, for those that don't know, Mark does a great job covering all things NFL draft, combine, all of the above. We are not into the offensive side of things, but we do have obviously some names that we have our attention on. And I'm just curious, as far as right now, what are you looking at? What's something that jumped off the page at you? I saw the defensive lineman from Tennessee had like the fastest 40 there. He does look like a little Javon Kearse as far as the size, the frame, that speed. Are we looking at a top 5 pick in your mind?
I'm not sure. It's so hard to tell right now. The draft this year more than ever is so all over the place. Every guy that you look at in terms of his rankings. Now, there's a couple of those top guys that we know: Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter. That's probably like that. That might be, and Cam Ward. I think we know all 3 of those guys are going to go top 4 to top 5. I've been surprised. This isn't really combine related. I know he announced he announced today that he's not throwing. I've been surprised at the meteoric rise for Cam Ward, because I feel like a couple of months ago we were talking and he was like a fringe first round pick even after the season, or I guess a month and a half ago after the season had ended, he was being treated like a fringe first round pick. Now he's being treated like the potential number 1 overall pick, and like there's a big gap between him and Shedeur. I still don't see it that way. I'm not a fan of either quarterback prospect really in this class. I had Shedeur ranked like 28th and Cam Ward ranked like 45th overall. So for those guys to be in these conversations for the top 2 picks kind of goes to show just how important that position is compared to every other position on the field. But I'll be interested to kind of see the receivers more than anything, because I feel like after Tet McMillan, the top receiver from Arizona, who honestly I'm a little bit higher on than a lot of other people. So there's a chance that Tet McMillan isn't viewed as the number 1 receiver with a bullet that I view him as. After that, it's wide open in terms of the receivers that could go late first, mid first, early second. And a lot of that, we saw it last year with Xavier Worthy sneaking into the first round. Like a lot of that is going to come down to the combine. Guys like Matthew Golden and Isaiah Bond from Texas are guys to watch. They both are thinking they can break the combine record. They were saying that Xavier Worthy set last year. Emeka Egbuka is a guy from Ohio State. Probably not going to tear up the combine, but if he performs well, it kind of confirms everything that you see on tape. Trey Harris is a guy that I'm really watching. He's probably my second favorite receiver in this class, and probably not on a lot of top fives for a lot of people, but I think he's an absolute beast out of Ole Miss. Can go and get it on the deep ball, can make stuff happen after the catch. It'll be interesting to see how he tests. Like, I think more than anything, I'm kind of interested to see the skill positions with running back and receiver, and how I guess Genty's not testing, but Marion Hampton, Travion, some of those secondary running backs and secondary receivers do.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit about that with Joe Tanzi, because the top 10 storylines was a good article on CBSSports.com. Top 10 storylines from the combine, and again, top 5 storylines are all revolving around quarterbacks, top 5 picks, Abdul Carter, so on and so forth. So when you get into the further away, that's when people like your opinions rise more than anything. It's like, okay, let's talk a little bit about those running backs, because we all know Ginty, but you brought up Hampton, and they continue to tell us how deep this draft is for the running back position. If you are in need of a running back, do it this draft. Do you subscribe to that theory?
Yeah, I do. It's definitely a lot better than last year. Last year's was not a great running back class, and I think that Ashton Genty is the best running back prospect I've ever seen.
Where's he going? Is he top 10, top 15, top 20?
I think Dallas at 12 is probably the floor. I think if he's there at 12 for Dallas, I think he's going. So I would say that's the floor. Part of me wants to say, like, I do think he ends up going top 10. I mean, Bijan Robinson went 8th to a team that we did not peg to have a need at running back. It would kind of be like if Carolina went and took Genty this year. I know they have Chuba Hubbard, but that's kind of what we thought with Atlanta. They had Tyler Algier, who had stepped up his rookie year, and they went and drafted Bijan 8th. Christian McCaffrey went 8th. Jahmyr Gibbs went 12th. And I think Ashton Genty is a much more accomplished running back prospect than those guys. When Bijan Robinson got drafted as a running back at 8, I pushed back against that. And I was kind of out on Bijan being this generational running back prospect. And we can argue about whether I was right or wrong. He's probably a top 5 running back, so it's worked out pretty well. But I wouldn't say he's justified the 8th pick as a running back yet. I think Ashton Genty is leaps and bounds better as a prospect than Bijan Robinson was coming out of Texas personally. Now, does that mean he should go higher than Bijan went 8th? I don't know. Every class is different, but there is part of me that thinks this is a terrible draft class. And I think Ashton Genty might be the only generational guy in it. And that's not to say he should go first or second or third, but if I'm just going down the list, I don't know if I'm calling any other player a generational pick at their position. I don't think, certainly no quarterback. Travis Hunter's generational in the way that he can play cornerback and wide receiver. I wouldn't necessarily say he's a generational cornerback. He's 6 foot tall. I don't think he's like the perfect corner that you'd build in a lab or anything like that. Abdul Carter, great edge rusher. I think there's been a few better over the last 5 to 7 years. So Genty's the only guy that I can say out of the last 5 years of doing this, he's the best prospect at his position.
We look at mock drafts, and for the most part, if you pay attention to college football, you're going to know all those names that are going to be at the top of the list. I won't lie that this gentleman didn't really hit me to the point that like, oh yeah, I remember him dominating. Could be wrong, whatever. I bring it up because I was surprised. I saw a picture of Mason Graham on the sideline talking to Stacey Dales at the combine. And okay, fine. It's a football player. He's a football guy, whatever. The defensive lineman, Michigan, great. I was surprised to see where he is being discussed as a mock draft. What am I missing for people that have no idea who he is? How good could he be? Was he that amazing at Michigan? And do you see him as a top 5 pick? Because 2 mock drafts I just pulled up right now have him going 5th right now.
Yeah, we just did. I do a draft podcast with Shane Haff and Dives and Ryan over on Eagles Pinpool Network, where we go position by position and rank either our top 5 or our top 10. And we just did defensive tackle this week. And Mason Graham is my second highest defensive tackle. I have a defensive tackle I'm way higher on than consensus. We can talk about that later maybe. But Mason Graham is a guy I have 11th overall. And I actually felt like I was arguing against him on the pod because I don't view him as this elite prospect, this guy who has all pro potential. What I do view him as is a bit of a can't miss guy. I don't really see a scenario he's not a really good defensive tackle against the run who gives you some pass rush chops. Like I don't think he's ever going to be Jalen Carter terrorizing the quarterback, and that's kind of my problem. If I'm going to take a defensive tackle in the top 5, I want it to be Jalen Carter. Like I want it to be a guy who I think can be the best player on a Super Bowl defense, and I think can be an absolute all-pro and a guy that quarterbacks go to bed worrying about and wake up still worrying about them. Like I don't think Mason Graham is necessarily that. I think he's probably going to get you 4 to 6 sacks, and I think he's probably going to be dominant in the run game. That's really valuable. I'm not trying to say that that's not. I think he's probably going to be a top 15 to 20 defensive tackle in the NFL. My thing is I don't think he's got that top 5 upside, maybe. And if I was drafting a defensive tackle, a position like that high, I would want that upside. And that's kind of why I'm a little lower on Graham, having him 11th, where you're right. A lot of people have him top 5, top 3. So I've even seen some people having him as the best player in the class. So I will say, I think if you want to see his impact on a game, it's the Ohio State game this year. The fact that Judkins and Travion could get nothing going on the ground. That's a lot of Mason Graham. The one other interesting part of the Mason Graham conversation is Kenneth Grant, another defensive tackle from Michigan, projected to go top 20. How many of these other defensive tackle prospects had a guy projected to go top 20 next to them? And if you're Grant, a guy projected to go top 5. I think there's a little bit of something to say about the fact that neither guy has been double teamed very often. Neither guy has been the primary focal point of a defense. I almost find myself a lot of the time with defensive line prospects. I always mention George Karlaftis, different position. He's an edge rusher, not a D tackle. But I remember back when he played at Purdue, he was an edge rusher. He was the only defensive lineman that was ever going to go to the NFL on that Purdue team. And every offensive line that went against that Purdue team was knowing they had to double George Karlaftis and take him out of the game, and he was the entire focus. And a lot of the time, you're able to do that. If you double a guy, it's going to be hard for him to make a ton of noise. He's going to make some plays still. But I almost, when I see those guys getting doubled on bad teams constantly, and my number 1 defensive tackle, Dion Walker, who a lot of people have outside of their top 50s, I have him as a top 7 overall player because I watched that Kentucky team a ton. And that defensive line is not talented outside of Dion Walker, who's 6'7", 331. He weighed in today. And every game he was getting doubled and tripled and focused on, to the point where he didn't have a very good year this year because he broke out in 2023 and had the 8 sacks. He probably played too many snaps as well. But I do think it's something to point out that Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant went against or had a guy next to them that the defense also had to worry about. They couldn't key in just on them.
No, well said. I'm glad we brought that up because that was surprising to me. It's not, look, I'm never going to doubt, the size of the fight inside somebody, and of course what he's been able to do getting to this spot. But when we're at the underwear Olympics and you're not really shining, just gonna hold off just a little bit. And I was surprised to see him being discussed, as you just brought up, man, best in the class. Good grief. Oh man, Abdul Carter was a monster, an absolute monster, taking on everybody in that Notre Dame game and down the stretch. Like, Abdul Carter, for me, is the best player in this draft. I just, again, I'm not going to go too deep. I don't have the knowledge like you do, but when we're talking about the top 10, top 15 picks that are potentially going to be there in this upcoming draft, Abdul Carter was somebody that jumped off the page at me. Now, is that how it's going to play out in the next level? We'll see. But it ultimately depends where he ends up. And it does seem like he's got the fight. He's got the mentality too. I kind of like him, the way he tweets. And I don't really say that often from a player's perspective, but he does seem like he's got the animal mentality, and like, I don't know who's doubting him, but like, oh yeah, he's playing that card. So whatever you got to do. I'm telling you, if I was Tennessee, I'd probably take him number 1.
Yeah, I have a top 6 this year, and there's basically nothing separating 1 from 6. And then there's a pretty huge drop off after 6 for
Lay
me.
on the 6. What do you got?
Number one, my number one guy as of right now is Will Johnson, cornerback from Michigan. A little bit outside the box. Some people have him outside their top 10s. Not a lot of people have him inside their top 5. I think he's your prototypical corner. I cannot see him not being really good. Like,
who's the NFL comp?
It sounds crazy, but I do think that there's, if I'm going to have him number one overall, it's Pat Surtain. I think that there's so much Pat Surtain in his game. He's got the similar arm length, similar size, kind of similar coming out of college. I remember saying about Pat Surtain, I was kind of like, what is the trait that is going to prevent him from being a really good corner? And there wasn't one. And now you see it. He's the best in the world. And I'm not saying that Will Johnson's going to be the best in the world, but I feel the same way as Surtain, where I kind of feel like there's not a lot of scenarios where he doesn't end up being really damn good. At number 2, I have Ted McMillan, wide receiver from Arizona, another guy outside of some people's top 10s. Like, weird for me to have those guys top 2. Obviously, a couple other bigger names. Ted McMillan, 6'5", an absolute yak monster, a guy who can make big plays happen. I think some people are going to say, oh, he's a contested catch merchant. I would say that he's 6'5", and that's a positive. And you see the amount of yards per catch, especially early in his career. I don't have a scenario. I don't have a fear that he can break big plays on his own without having to go up and get the ball. And I think he's like sculpted to be an NFL wide receiver at 6'5". Like, not a lot of guys like him coming out at that height that can move as well as he can. So I'm pretty bullish on him. Also, don't think he had the greatest quarterback play, especially last year. So he's my number 2. Number 3, I have Abdul Carter, edge rusher. And number 4, I'll say it right with him. I have James Pierce, another edge rusher from Tennessee. And there's some off the field concerns that are propping up with him. Apparently, I've seen him mock to the Eagles all the way down.
What's the off the field issues with him? It would just give us
that he's uncoachable, that he's kind of like crazy. And that's kind of what I heard. And that Tennessee was like hiding a lot of warts with him through his time there. But I see those guys pretty equal. Like, Abdul Carter is better. He had a better year this year. I think people are kind of throwing away James Pierce's 2023 and also writing off his 2024 like it was some terrible year. He was like the leader on one of the best defenses in the country, where he still had 9-10 sacks. Like, I think James Pierce is going to be an absolute stud. I might even say that I think like he might be safer than Abdul Carter, but Abdul Carter, I think, has a better chance of becoming like an all-pro. Number 5, I would put Ashton Jeanty at running back, which we talked about already. And then number 6, I would put Travis Hunter. And the thing that I am weird about with Travis Hunter is if Travis Hunter did not play wide receiver, where would he be going? That's kind of my question. I don't know. That mid first round?
Yeah.
And that's my problem. How much value am I getting from him being a wide receiver? I don't know. It's so up in the air. And obviously, this is a once-in-a-generation conversation. I don't think we're going to have a lot of two-way guys. I do think there's a little bit of, like, the shiniest object a little bit, where we've never seen this before. It's such a unicorn. Oh, my God, can you imagine killing 2 birds with 1 stone, filling 2 holes with 1 guy? But I just don't know if this is realistic at all, to expect him to play any legitimate snaps at whatever the secondary position is. Looks like that's wide receiver, which is the right move. He's an elite cornerback prospect. I do think that. But I think Will Johnson's a good bit better than him as a cornerback prospect, and he's going to go higher. And he's going higher to play cornerback and apparently some wide receiver snaps. I'm a little weirded out by the Travis Hunter conversation. I can't figure out. I have him 6th, and I have him right there with that top 6. But I might even say that top 5 is like a step ahead of him for me. Like, I'm a little weirded out by the whole conversation, and I'm a little worried we might be overinflating him based on maybe him playing like 15 to 20 snaps a game at wide receiver.
Yeah, the number one thing that concerns me about Travis Hunter is the fact that, like, the expectation is there that he's going to play both ways. And look, I'm not going to sit here and say it's easy to do that at Colorado, and he was very impressive, but I just think it's another animal to say that you're going to do that at the professional level. I don't know what the idea would be from a team and how they would approach that. And, if a team, I just, there's a lot of up in the air, a lot of questions up in the air when it comes to it. He is a talent. He is a freak, and it's legitimate. We know a team's going to talk themselves into him, and good for him. But if I'm the one guy with the top 5 pick, yeah, I'm right there with you when it comes to Travis Hunter. I would be very cautious with the idea that he's going to be able to play both ways. So where is he best at? Can you answer that question right now? For me, it's corner, right? But he's had his moments at wide receiver. So I like, and then it comes down to mentally from his perspective. What does he want? Yeah, I would rather him just focus on being a corner. Just be a corner, man. It's your rookie season. Go out there and make a difference being a corner like Quinyon did, like Cooper DeJean did for the Eagles this year. Hate to say it like that because it's in our backyard, but it's the reality. And then once you get accustomed and calm and into the moment and understand a little bit more about the professional game, we can mix you in on the offensive side. Sure, you're a talent there. He's got great skills to go up and get the ball. We saw that a ton. I'm right there with you when it comes to questioning whether or not Travis Hunter. So, like, to me, and I know need comes into it, but I would look at a guy like Abdul Carter, of course, Pierce, as you brought up. Quarterbacks, I know we did touch on that from the beginning. Cam is interesting. And Shedeur's, like, I don't think there's a necessarily huge drop-off between the two. Like, I like Cam over Shedeur, but I don't think it's like, wow, a slam dunk one way or the other for me. It's like, I just think Cam's got a little bit stronger of an arm, but I think Shedeur is probably a little bit more accurate. I think Shedeur probably processes a little bit better than Cam, but something about Cam, I like what he's done with his career so far, betting on himself, going to Miami after the 2 stops. You pointed out, like, he wasn't even a first-round pick last year, right? Projected. And then what he's been able to discuss, and no one's, fooled by that, him being discussed as high as he is because he plays a quarterback and teams are desperate. I mean, the Giants don't even have a quarterback on their roster right now, Mark. They don't have a quarterback on their roster. God, that is bad. But, I just look at Cam just a tad bit ahead, but I wouldn't take him number 1 overall if I was the Tennessee Titans. I mean that. I would probably go Abdul Carter overall, but we'll see. Hey, good breakdown on the 6. Looking forward to it. Just to let everybody know, NFL Combine started yesterday. Defensive linemen, linebackers. Today it's D-backs and tight ends. Saturday we got quarterbacks, wide receivers, running backs, and then Sunday the offensive line, the beef up front. Let's go. All right. One more. Tyler Warren.
Tyler Warren's 9th for me. I have Tyler Warren 9th. I actually have Colston Loveland, the tight end from Michigan, who just I think he's 6'6", just measured out. I have him 10th. I have him right there with Warren. Both of those guys, I think, are absolute studs who I think you could kind of picture both of them similarly a little bit in TJ Hawkinson, Dallas Goedert-esque kind of roles in the NFL. I think that there's a lot of Goddard to Tyler Warren. And I think, which is funny because a lot of Eagles fans desperately want Warren to replace Goddard. And I do think Warren probably will be better than Goddard for sure. I think he's better with the ball in his hands, even though Goddard's, I mean, we saw with the stiff arm against the Packers. Like he can make some plays against New Orleans as well. He can make some plays happen as well. One of the best tight end screen guys of all time at that position. But TJ Hawkinson is probably a pretty good comparison for Loveland with all that he brings in the blocking game, coming from Iowa, and obviously Loveland kind of comes from the big run game, the zone run game at Michigan. Last year, obviously, J.J. McCarthy, when they won the title, didn't have to throw it all that much. And then this year, they couldn't throw it all that much, regardless of who they threw out there at quarterback. And Loveland was still pretty productive and made things happen on his own and made plays. I think both of those guys are guys that are going to step in and be top 15 tight ends the moment they're drafted.
Yeah, Tyler Warren's interesting. Obviously, we watched a ton of him, and I love how he's unique and to the point of what he's able to do. Just get him the rock. I mean, if you want to snap it to him, wildcat, sure. I'm not saying that that's going to work in the NFL. I would just look at what we've seen. And it's funny because we just went over some of the rookie wide receivers, and we've known what has happened in years past, specifically last year, how there was a bunch of wide receivers at the rookie at the wide receiver position that tallied up crazy numbers. Is there a guy in your mind, is it McMillan, that you think could go out there and put up those type of numbers? Or are you looking at the tight end position to continue to what the trend that we've seen as of the last few years? Because that's where I'm at. I look at what Laporta's been able to do, and I do see like a Warren possibly sliding into that role. I think he could have that type of success at the next level. Again, who's the quarterback? Where is he ending up? That has everything. It starts and ends there with all these receivers or all these draft picks, but especially on the offensive side of the ball. But I do like Tyler Warren a lot. Do you think he's a top 10 pick?
Yeah, I have him 9th. And look at Bowers last year. I mean,
Bowers
I
too.
think
Correct.
For a long time, I have a buddy who follows the draft really closely, and he's super anti taking a tight end high. And he makes fun of me a lot with Kyle Pitts. Anytime Kyle Pitts does anything, he sends it my way. And
were you right about Kyle Pitts last year or no? I don't know. Like,
no, definitely not. Definitely not. I loved Kyle Pitts. And by the way, I'm gonna fall for it next year with Penix. Like if he's a Falcon, like I'm gonna fall for it again.
Let's go. I'm all in on the Penix train, baby.
It's sickening. The Kyle Pitts, the headlock Kyle Pitts has me in. I want him to go to a non-Falcons team so I can see what it looks like outside of that cursed organization for him. But he had 1,000 yards as a rookie. It's whatever.
I love him.
Unbelievable, the Kyle Pitts career. But his whole thing was, if you look at a lot of the greatest tight ends, most of them are taken on day 2, and some are taken on day 3 even. Brock Bowers bucks that trend last year just in time for these guys, Tyler Warren and Colston Loveland. Tyler Warren's wearing 44. He wears 44 because his dad showed him John Riggins tape and said he wants him to run the ball like that, which when you watch him, he does. He looks like Marshawn Lynch running the ball at the tight end position. But, I mean, Warren's a guy who I don't think that – I think there's a chance he made Aller look a whole lot better than Aller ever was. I think Warren's a guy who's going to step in right away and be an absolute beast. So there's a lot of teams that make a lot of sense for both tight ends. I wouldn't be surprised if Warren ends up going somewhere in that 5 to 10 range, and I wouldn't be surprised if Loveland creeps into that top 15.
Excellent stuff. Mark Henry Jr. with me here for the full hour. It's the Daily Ticket. We got a lot to discuss from the NFL Draft Combine, and we'll have plenty of time to get our takes in as far as the NFL Draft is concerned once the Combine wraps up. But it is a great spot in the sports calendar, and I know some people don't care about it, but that's all right. You never know, man. All of a sudden, you got insiders ready to fight each other at Starbucks out there in Indy, so it changes things up just a little bit. All right, let's keep it moving, and let's get on over to some of the other odds and ends that are happening in the sports world. Specifically, let's talk a little about the NBA and what we brought up last night with Steph Curry going for 56, and just an incredible night down there in Orlando. Golden State, though, that's where I want to fire something your way. What's the ceiling right now? I think they're 7-1 with Jimmy Butler. What's their ceiling in your mind right now? Because obviously there's money to be made on the Golden State Warriors if you think that they can get to the NBA Finals, if you think, hell, that they can win it all. And I'm sure we can find some other plays as well that would be beneficial for some people that want to get some action on Golden State. What is your take so far through 8 games of play with Jimmy Butler? As I said, only 1 loss to show for. So they continue to win. Steph seems like he's freed up a little bit more, which is understandable. But when it comes down to these sort of bets, like, am I taking the Golden State Warriors in a 7-game series against the Nuggets? Am I taking the Golden State Warriors in a 7-game series against the Lakers? Am I taking the Golden State Nuggets or Golden State Warriors in a 7-game series against Oklahoma City Thunder? So, like, that's where it starts and ends with me. But so far, what are you seeing? What do you like from Golden State? And what's their ceiling?
They're every bit of a contender. And I said it on Twitter last night, my big prediction, the Oklahoma City Thunder will not be in the NBA Finals. If you're just saying Thunder the field.
I don't hate it.
And by the way, it's not me saying, it's not me. I think a lot of people would read that and be like, oh, you're predicting one team not to go to the finals. I remember I got a lot of that when I said the Lions wouldn't make the Super Bowl. The Thunder are -110 to win the West right now. -120 on some places. So it's basically an even bet if you're looking at the Thunder of the field. If you look at it that way, you've got the Nuggets, plus 650 on DraftKings, Lakers plus 750, the Warriors 10-1. I can't. Here's where I'm struggling. I can't decide where I land on which of those three I think are going to be the team that does it. Last Saturday on the Tough Cover, I went through this whole thing about how I think Denver is going to be a nightmare for OKC, and how I just don't think OKC is going to be able to deal with Denver, and how we've seen the Lakers not be able to deal with Jokic time in and time again.
And then the Lakers rolled them.
They deal with them and they roll them. Yeah. And I was like, oh, maybe I should be talking myself into the Lakers. And the thing you've seen me arguing about it for weeks now, ever since the trade deadline in that group chat. Austin Reeves, I'm not going to say he's a star. He's a top 40 player. He's playing his heart out on defense. He's moving the ball. He's shooting it well from three, shooting it from a good amount of times from three per game. He's able to slash. He's making good cuts for LeBron and Luka. I think there was a lot of talk like, oh, you got to trade Reeves for someone who doesn't need the ball in their hands, or a defender, or a big man. I think he could not be more perfect as the guard in between Luka and LeBron, to kind of connect those pieces and to be able to hit down those shots. Rui playing small ball 5 for them looks like that lineup looks incredible ever since they got Luka. I don't know if it was before last game, but there were these metrics out there about the Luka, LeBron, Rui, Reeves format, and I think there was someone else, I forget who it was, in that 5-man lineup, and it's been unbelievable. Golden State, kind of similar to the Lakers. You're worried about the center position. You've got Quentin Post playing legitimate minutes, and he's knocking down threes for now. Is that going to happen in May? Kevon Looney, he's playing 15 minutes a game. I think he could probably give you 15 minutes a game. I have a buddy who, Pat Moran, who I interact with a lot on Twitter. He doesn't believe on Golden State because of the fact that if Quentin Post stops making threes from the center position, you've got Jimmy Butler, Draymond, and Kuminga all out there at the same time, not spacing the floor for Steph. And I get what he's saying, but I think you can do some funny stuff with your rotations to make sure that those three guys are not playing with anyone but Quentin Post, who at least provides the spacing of you have to defend him to three. Golden State's the one that you have to squint the most with, I think, out of Denver, LA, and Golden State. But it's hard. It's easier to squint when Steph's dropping. What did he end up with? 54?
53 or 56, one or the other.
Yeah, he was unbelievable last night.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. He was pulling up from half court. He hit a buzzer beater. He hit a logo 3. On the day where I think it was the anniversary where he hit that huge shot in Oklahoma City back in like 2016 or 20.
That was 2016, yeah.
Like what? Just a freak, man. It's so much fun to watch him play. But, when you have to start asking yourself these questions, and we're getting closer here to, of course, we're going to have that 2-week stretch where nobody gives a damn about anybody and anything to close up the regular season. But we're 58 games, 60 games into the season at this point in time. Cavs are 48-10. So we're going to be talking about some playoff action coming our way pretty soon here. So these are the questions. And, of course, the price is right. Once again, DraftKings Sportsbook 9-1 for the Warriors to represent the West in the NBA Finals, plus 750 for the Lakers. Nuggets plus 650. OKC minus 110. No, I had a friend of mine ask me, because I've been throwing this out there, like, I said something to Sam the other day on the show where I was like, to me, I think the NBA has a few teams that are worth tuning in for, but like, a lot of these teams are in the dumpster. A lot of these teams just don't care. A lot of these guys are hurt. So I made the case for like a few teams, and Sam was like, "Oh, that's not right." And he was, he's a hoop head, so he's passionate, giving me the league perspective. And I'm like, "Oh yeah, who's playing in the NBA Finals, Sam?" And he said, "Probably Boston and Oklahoma City." And I said, "Well, there you go, right? The two favorites. Even though Cleveland is still top dog, but they're not favored to win the East. At least I don't believe they are.
They don't have a shot."
No, they're not. They're -1. They're plus 210, and the Celtics are -115. So that tells you all you need to know. I think the Celtics are a slam dunk to get to the NBA Finals. I do think Oklahoma City could trip up, and it's simply based off of SGA is going to be the MVP. Doesn't happen all that often when you win the MVP and the team continues with that success. I just feel like they're going to have a hiccup, and it might come at the worst time, specifically in the playoffs. Somebody knocks them off. It won't be like shocking. It will be an upset because they are favored, but I won't be shocked. So I'm right there with you. It's just who will eventually get to the NBA Finals from the West? Could it be the Lakers? Could it be the Thunder? Or the Nuggets? Could it be the Warriors? Is there a team we're not talking about? Let's see.
I don't think it can be anyone outside of that top four. I think it's going to be one of OKC, Denver, LA, or Golden State, and they're not top four in rankings or in records.
Sign me up for the Lakers, Mark.
I would love it. I
sign me up right now.
Nothing would be more fun about an NBA postseason than the Lakers making a run. And I know that people don't want to hear that. There's a lot of non-LeBron people, but what I will announce right now, that minus 115 number is incredible on Boston. You look on Vegas Insider where you can look at all the books, minus 140, minus 150, minus 160 on them to win the West. I might be placing a little wager on the Celtics minus 115 to win the East. They're not losing the East. Like I still think, and honestly, I'm going to check actually just what it is in general for them to win it all, because I think that's what's happening. I still think the Celtics are going to win the NBA championship against whoever represents the West. When they need to be, they are the best team in basketball every single time. You look at what they did against New York. Every time it feels like they're challenged at all, they show you what they are. And I know they're playing Cleveland tonight, I believe. I don't want to say that if I'm wrong. Yes, they're playing Cleveland tonight, but they're on a back-to-back. So watch, the Cavs will probably win this game somehow, and people will make a big deal of it. They're on a back-to-back. So I have no doubts that Boston's going to be representing the East. And I feel like something that happens a lot in the NBA is anytime we assume we know what the finals is going to be, like Boston and OKC, like we've kind of done all year, doesn't usually end up working out that way. Like last year, it was Denver. Everyone thought Boston and Denver. Minnesota takes care of Denver. Dallas gets in. So that's kind of what's leading my OKC thought. I think it's going to be Celtics Nuggets or Celtics Lakers.
Yep. All right, great stuff across the board. The sports carousel rolls on. One more, because I saw you tweet this out earlier, and you said shame on me, but you have already a World Series champion.
Wait, I'm.
You don't? Did I misread that?
Wait, I'm confused. Oh, World Series. I have a World Series champion. I was like, wait, I was like, the Phillies signed a World Series. I didn't understand.
You're already crowning a World Series champion on February 28th. That's not even March, and Mark Henry Jr. has who?
I've been doing this since December, by the way. But the Atlanta Braves are going to win the World Series this year, and it makes me miserable to say it. I've never been so sure in February that a team's going to win the World Series. All the talk about the Dodgers spending all the money, and they have the best team. But all the talk about them spending all the money. The Mets go get Soto. Obviously, we're going to be hyper-focused on the Phillies. The Yankees are a top story, even though they lost Soto. You sign Fried, and you get Goldschmidt, and they have all these pieces that they spent money on in the bullpen. But ho-hum, the Atlanta Braves go out and get Jurickson Profar for like no money when he was an absolute stud last year for San Diego. And they get Ronald Acuna and Spencer Strider back to a team that won 89 games when it was absolutely ravaged by injuries. I think they're going to win like 100 games and just run away with the division and end up winning the whole thing. I hate to say it.
They are the second favorite on the odds board here on DraftKings Sportsbook. Braves 93.5 at minus 120 as far as win total is concerned. So something to keep inventory on there. Great job, Mark. Hey, one more before we get out of here. Sorry about that. The Eagles did land a new quarterback coach. And this one came out of nowhere for a lot of people, a lot of insiders, all that. I do want to read you one thing, because this dude, he was the head coach of Bowling Green.
That and a dollar will get you a cup of coffee. You know what I mean?
Supposedly this guy is like, next level.
No, No, I like the idea of it.
Scott Loeffler is his name.
Yeah, and I actually feel like I've heard his. I wonder where he was at before Bowling Green, if he had an OC job somewhere or something. I feel like I've heard that name before, but I think you'll see this more and more. And you saw it when Chip Kelly, obviously different scenario, but left UCLA head coach and be an offensive coordinator at Ohio State. And then he ends up going to the Raiders to be an OC. And I think, who was it? Jeff Hafley, Boston College's head coach, goes and becomes the Packers defensive coordinator. I think you're seeing when you're, and those are still power conferences, but I think the Akron coach went and was the OC for Colorado last year. Like, I think you're seeing, if you're not one of the haves in college football, it's not going to be easy to be a head coach if you don't have any money coming in from that NIL to support you. So maybe if you're frustrated with NIL, I think it's pretty easy as a head coach to be like, all right, I'll go coach in the NFL and be a quarterback's coach where it's about X's and O's, and I don't have to worry about, schmooze and boosters to try to get them to sign a 2-star right tackle for me. So I think that a lot of people are shocked that this guy's leaving Bowling Green. I'm sure he's being paid more to be a quarterback coach, and you probably have higher career upward mobility as a quarterback coach,
Super Bowl champion,
as a head coach in a MAC.
Yeah, he's joining the Super Bowl champion too. It's huge deal. I don't know who sold him what, whatever. He's been around a lot of places. You might have heard of him. He was the offensive coordinator for Temple back in 2011, went to Auburn, was with Virginia Tech for 3 years, then BC for 3 years, and then Bowling Green since 2019 to now, taking over the Eagles. I just want to read a tweet that I don't even know who this guy is. Honest NFL on Twitter. It's got 67,000 followers, really in-depth X's and O's guy. And he's like, Scott Loeffler is such a great hire. I can't even begin to think how much stuff I've stolen from him over the years. He said, I don't know how it'll affect the way they play, but he's something I think will be an asset to the offensive staff as a whole and in the quarterback room. He's worked with basically every type of player in every type of way imaginable, and he knows what he's talking about with quarterback play. So, look, from some rando on social, that's a positive. We like that. Again, quarterback coach. At the end of the day, he's a quarterback coach, but interesting hire to say the least. So wanted to get that in here on the Daily Ticket. Mark will not be heard tomorrow. We got Butler and Villanova. Big Saturday card, only 2 Saturday regular seasons in college regular season action. We got Alabama and Tennessee. We got Auburn and Kentucky. I'm probably forgetting another big one. Anything on the card for you tomorrow that you have your eye on?
I was taking a look at it. I didn't see the line come out for this yet. Oh, okay. Kentucky 5.5 point dog at home against Auburn. I don't know if it'll end up being my best bet. I do like Kentucky there. I think Kentucky stands up here, and this is kind of a big late season showing, big game for them. They didn't have a great showing against Alabama, a couple games on the road. They came back and did beat Oklahoma, but you're coming home. This is a tough place to play, obviously, at Rupp. So I do think Kentucky gets the job done there against an Auburn team that realistically, if Auburn loses this game, I think they're unaffected completely. Like, I think that they're a 1 seed. They could lose like 3 more games, and I think they'd still be a 1 seed. So,
you know what does take a hit though? The Wooden Award.
Yes. Yeah, that's fair. The Wooden Award and the Coach of the Year award for Bruce Pearl. Looks like he's a potential. By the way, I will just say the Coach of the Year is Rick Pitino, whether people like it or not.
All day. Coach of the Year is Rick Pitino.
What he's done at St. John's is unbelievable.
They won the Big East, or a piece of it. Are they going to win outright, or they won a piece of it now?
I think they're going to win outright. Even I think they might already have that. But Pitino, it just feels, and I know this is a dumb way to view basketball, because I really like the team also. You talk X's and O's as well. I really like the team. They're incredible defensively, which goes without saying about Pitino, but it just feels like he's going to be a main character of March. And that's kind of something I think I'm going to focus on when the bracket comes out. I'm going to do something with that, the main characters of March. Like, it just feels like Rick Pitino is going to be the main character of this thing. I don't know if that means he wins it all. I don't think he's going out before the Elite Eight. Like, I think lock in Rick Pitino going all the way to the Elite Eight, the second weekend, all the way to the second day of the second weekend. So I think he's going to have a big, big March ahead of him.
Well, March is tomorrow. And
today, man, or no, tomorrow. I'm all the way off, man.
That's all right. It's Friday, baby. Yeah, tomorrow is March 1, and like I said, we got 2 Saturdays left in the regular season and conference tournament action, and then we'll be filling out our brackets and seeing who will be winning it all very shortly. Mark Henry Jr., great job as always on the Sports Carousel, the Sports Safari. as we were all over the place. Rhinos running by us. We're talking draft picks. We got MLB. We did it all. Don't touch that dial, though, because coming up next, you get Beefs Bets. Also, Union. Yeah, the boys from the X's and U will be going live today. So we'll have that for you coming up a little bit later as well at 4 o'clock. So a lot to discuss here. And once again, Mark Cuban Jr. Can be heard every Saturday except for tomorrow because of Villanova basketball, but he'll be back next Saturday. Tough Cover Radio Show from 11 to 1. Mark, take us out as always.
Tough Cover Country. Let's ride.
If you missed anything, FoxPHLGambler.com.